Alright, today I'm going to talk a little bit about unit conversion and specifically liquid measurements. When you're taking these state tests, at least in Oregon, you always have provided for you this page you're looking at right now, which has our measurement conversions, formulas for area, formula for surface area and volume, and this is available for you. Your teacher should always tell you about this, but make sure if you need it, you ask for it and know where to find it. It's usually available as an icon that you can click at the bottom of your screen if you're taking this on the computer. We're going to focus on liquid measurements, which I have transferred onto this page for you, where we see cups, pints, quarts, and gallons, and their equivalents, and the standard that we've tested in class, which is converting among different units of measurement to solve problems. Although this is a 7th grade standard, of course these types of problems come up later and they get more and more complex, so it's important to understand the concept here of getting through a conversion table. As we've talked about in class, I'm going to flash this page up here quickly. The most important thing for you to know, these problems are usually story problems and they have lots of words, sometimes intended to confuse you. But if you focus on the comparison words, you will always write these things in the right order and then your math will always be correct. Usually the math is not that difficult in these problems. These comparison words are those short words used to relate one thing to another. And if you write it as a fraction, you can't go wrong. Here are a few examples that you could find in a story problem. And I will underline the comparison words, like miles per gallon, miles an hour, workouts in a week. 4 students at each table, study for 2 hours every day. These are all comparison words. A ratio of boys to girls, the word two is a comparison word. Hours in a week, cost per unit. All of these little words tell you, to take our cost per unit example, you're going to put the price of something on top. The word per means draw that fraction bar, and the unit, for example, pounds, cost per pound, or something at the bottom there. Okay, so each one of these comparison words actually tells you to write a fraction. And if it comes before the comparison, it goes on top, then your comparison, and then your after. Okay? And if you just keep this in mind when you read these problems, you don't have to memorize each and every one of these small words, but just understand that there are many of them and they all do the same thing. They all compare one thing to another. And if you use that word to remind you of the fraction bar, you'll always write these in the correct order. So let's go to a practice problem. I'm going to work through this one with you, and then I'll give you a separate problem to do on your own, and we'll go over the answer. A gallon of milk costs $2.69. A pint costs 49 cents. Find the cost per ounce to decide which is the best value. All right, so here's how we do this. We have a couple of things going on. First, here's what we're trying to solve. We want to find the cost per ounce. So we want to take the gallon and the pint and end up changing it into ounces. Okay, ounces in a gallon. How many are there? Well, if we go up to our conversion table, we don't know. We only know that 4 quarts are in a gallon. We want to know how many ounces. The only thing on our table that tells us ounces is a cup. So if 1 cup is 8 ounces, and there are 2 cups in a pint, that still doesn't tell us how many ounces are in a gallon, but it does tell us there are 8 times 2, or 16 ounces in a pint. Since there are 2 pints in a quart, we know that a quart is going to be 16 times 2, or 32 ounces. We still don't have ounces in a gallon, but since there are 4 quarts, we can multiply this, 32 times 8, and we find out there are 128 ounces in a gallon. Okay, so you can go ahead and make the connections and complete these conversion tables. Sometimes they're tricky because they don't give you the direct connection, but we just made it now. So if a gallon costs $2.69, our cost per ounce, we know there are 128 ounces in a gallon. So if we do that division problem, 269 divided by 128, our answer is, we have this big long decimal here, but since we're talking about cents, we want to round it off to actual money we can fit in our hand, which is 2 cents per ounce. Okay, now let's deal with pints. If we know that a pint, back up to our table, we figured out that a pint is 16 ounces based on the fact that 2 cups are in 1 pint and each cup is 8 ounces. So we come down here, a pint, the cost per ounce, 49 cents, 16 ounces. Let's do the division. Okay, actual money we can have in our hand is 3 cents. So our pint is 3 cents per ounce. And which is the best value? That's the question being asked here. And it looks like this one is. It's less per ounce. So we should buy the gallon. That's it. Now let's do your very own practice problem. A pint of orange juice is $1.50. 2 quarts of orange juice cost $5.25. What is the cost per gallon of each? If you're watching the video, go ahead and hit pause, do the work, and then when you come back, we will go through it together. Welcome back from hitting the pause button. Let's go ahead and work this problem out. Okay, let's go back to our modified conversion table. We want the cost per gallon, so it's going to be dollars per gallon. So we need to figure out how many pints are in a gallon. Let's see, there's 1 pint, 2 pints in a quart, and 4 quarts in a gallon. So if I go 2 times 4, that's 8 pints in a gallon. Once again, we can write that as a fraction. So since 1 pint is $1.50, we have 8 of them. That'll give us the price per gallon. And the answer is $12. Now we need to figure out 2 quarts of orange juice is $5.25. How many 2 quarts do we have? Well, if we look at our chart here, we see that there are 4 quarts in a gallon. So I need to take my 2 quarts and multiply that twice. Why? Because I need 4 quarts. So I'm going to take my price, which is $5.25 for 2 quarts, and multiply it by 2, because that gives me the price for 4 quarts. Okay, $10.50 per gallon if I was going to keep buying quarts. If I was going to keep buying pints, I would buy 8 of them, and my cost per gallon would be $12. That is crazy. So obviously I would buy the quarts, and more than likely I would look for a generic brand that cost a little bit less. There we have it. I hope that worked out for you. Stay tuned for more unit conversion practice videos. Thank you.